Alright, so when the game comes out, we're going to have access to 6 different classes here. So you got the Reaper we're going to start off with right here. Reaper is going to be either a DPS or a support class. Um, it's one of my favorite classes in the game, obviously, because it uses a scythe. Um, uh, Reaper DPS is actually, pretty much straightforward. You have a main damage skill that does increase damage based on how high you fill up the class meter. You also have a debuff skill that applies an on effect on your target that stores damage, and then basically you're going to use your ability to take all that damage you stored up and basically use an execute, and it's going to do all that damage you stored up there in that skill. Um, you can cloak on this class, which obviously is super fun in any game, so you can go invisible. Um, and then you also have an ability that allows you to return to a state of a certain amount of time ago, so you can kind of go back in time as like a rewind kind of ability. Um, and you can use that to reset skill cooldowns. So if you had a cooldown you just used, you can go back in time and then they'll be back up again for you. So you can basically use 2 of those skills. Um, if anyone's played Guild Wars 2, kind of like a Mesmer skill, so uh, pretty much just a pretty much straightforward class here. It's one of the classes that's going to be a little bit harder to master, but definitely will pay off with damage if you do it right. In terms of support class here, Reaper is going to be uh, it's going to be focusing on mainly single targets. Um, However, they also do have some regens as well. Uh, re, um, Reaper is one of the only classes in the game that can currently restore a target's HP to max, which is really nice. Think of Final Fantasy Benediction there for it. You also have a skill that divides damage among teammates. So basically, if a tank was going to get hit for 10,000, you can split it up amongst your party, and then each of them only take 2,000 instead. So that's kind of nice. It'll help a little bit of mitigation there. A pretty straightforward healing class. If you've ever played like a white mage or a holy priest or anything like that, you should be right at home on Reaper here for you. All right, and let's see here. So next up, we got the Summoner. They got 2 supports, or they have 2 forms as well. They have a DPS form. Um, Basically, they'll be able to summon rocks. You can have up to 3 of these at a time. That's going to be your core DPS skill for single target. Um, your gameplay loop's going to be kind of, can you keep up all 3 of those rocks while you're executing your other damage and buff skills. Um, you also have your fox here, as you can see at the bottom here. That fox you're going to use for typically AoE damage. The fox can switch between melee and range. Um, and of course it just looks cool as well. So it's your traditional pet class here. So if you've ever played a pet class in any other game, you'll probably be right at home. They can cast on the move, which is really nice. Um, it's just, I think, going to be like probably one of the most popular classes when the game comes out there. Um, so next up, let's take a look at Spearmaster. Spearmaster here is going to have a DPS and a tank mode. Um, Spearmaster DPS, basically it's pretty simple. They have a mechanism that allows 3 skills to be transformed into another version of the skill. It deals significantly more damage. So you're basically rotating between those 3 skills while buffing them and adding other DPS skills in between them. Maintaining the cooldown of the 3 core skills is key. Your attacks are melee, but the class also deals pretty excellent AoE damage as well. Also, they do have a tank mode. Tank mode compared to a Berserker, you have higher HP. You also have more damage absorbing skills. That further makes the class pretty good at soaking damage. So, if you're looking to play a tank that just can absorb large hits, this might be the class for you. On top of that, you're going to be pretty good at removing boss armor. You can knock the boss down when you strip its armor away, so that's always going to be nice. The mobility of this class, though, is going to be one of their weaknesses. They're not quite as mobile as a Berserker. So if you're looking for good mobility, this may not be the class for you. This class doesn't also have as well very good AoE aggro skills like the Berserkers, so it's going to be a little bit harder for them to pick up aggro on mobs and hold them there for you. In my opinion here, I would say that the SM tank is a little bit easier to play and manage than the Berserker. Um, your DPS isn't quite as high um, as Berserker, and this class doesn't have quite as high of a skill ceiling either. So when you're playing tank mode, you're going to still be able to perform pretty well. So if you're looking for an easier class to play, this might be the class for you. Now let's look at the Berserker here. Berserker has a DPS mode and a tank mode, just like the Spearmaster. In DPS mode, you're going to have skills that kind of are reminiscent of maybe like an Arms Warrior. Going to have a barrage skill that will thrust you forward and stun the target. You have a block skill. Um, you're going to also have basically a skill that you press and hold, and then a shadow clone. And your DPS is going to be kind of resolving, kind of like a summoner. You're going to get 6 of your clones up, and you're going to try to focus on um, keeping those clones up, and then those clones will help you do more damage. So pretty much a little bit kind of like, I guess, like a summoner, but a melee summoner, which is kind of neat. In tank form, you're gonna have you don't have quite as much HP as the Spearmaster will, but you will have decent mitigation in terms of your mobility skills. You're gonna have more avoidance abilities. You are able to heal your mana and HP with them. You can also have, like I said earlier, you're going to have better AoE um, aggro skills. So that's going to be nice if you're someone that likes to throw out an AoE taunt at a specific area instead of getting targeted with auto lock. This is definitely going to be a class for you. Berserkers are great tanks. It's one of the classes where when you master it, you're going to really get a giant payoff for it. DPS is going to be a little bit higher. Maybe a little bit harder for a newer player, but of course, the more you play something, the better you're going to get at it. So, definitely a class that I think that most people are going to kind of enjoy there the longer they play it. So next up, let's take a look at Bard. And there's also some classes here that just aren't in the game yet. So Bard. Bard DPS, one of the downsides of this class is that they cannot naturally cast while moving. They do have a skill that it's going to allow them to cast while on the move. But otherwise they're going to be anchored into the ground. This class is going to be kind of like your traditional mage kind of class, I guess, in that they use fire, thunder, and water spells. You need to kind of like, it's sort of going to be like a Reaper in the terms that you're going to refill. You're going to have a class meter that you refill. As you refill that class meter, you're going to cash it in to do big damage. The DPS on Bard at the beginning isn't going to be so great, but they can become very, very strong DPS. And on top of that, it's going to be one of those classes where I think they're going to do really well in PvP. They do have a lot of CC abilities, slows, immobilizes. So if you're looking to do some of that, this may be a class for you. In terms of support, most of the skills are going to be single target. This class does have more AoE heals than Reaper. They have a self-invincibility skill, one target invincibility skill. You can cast shields on single targets and multiple teammates. Bards are going to be pretty great supports in the game. You're going to be very well at adapting to different situations, having a healthy amount of both single and AoE heals. Again, you can't move while casting, but you do have that skill that's going to allow you to move for a short period of time. If you're new to the game, I believe that Bard's going to be a great class for you. Um, and it's definitely going to be a popular class, I think, when the game comes out. Now you're seeing here a couple classes that aren't in the game when we get it for release. So you're also going to have an archer class, as well as Fox Girl here. And then of course the samurai class as well. So the last class we're going to have in our Western